You are listening to the Novel Writing Podcast, episode 176. I'm your host, Colleen Mitchell. Grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Today we're covering 3 tips to help you confidently approach your first draft. Number 1, stop worrying about chapter 1. Writing the first chapter is a huge hurdle for many writers, usually because of the perception that the first chapter has to be perfect for the rest of the story to work. In reality, first chapters get rewritten so often through the regular course of edits that even if you spent a whole month writing and rewriting your first chapter until it felt perfect, you'd likely still change it multiple times before hitting publish. What's important is starting where the story starts, and it's best to start in media res, or in the moment, in the action. But even if you don't really know where the story actually starts when you begin writing, try writing what's happening right before the stuff you know is going to happen later. For example, in my first book, Mark of Stars, one of the early drafts started with my main character and her best friend in the middle of finals during high school. But through edits, I realized that it wasn't grippy enough to grab a reader and keep them, so I changed the first chapter to the brother's point of view in a completely different situation that was much more grippy, and now gets regular praise from readers that the first chapter is what hooked them to read the rest of it. But that didn't happen until the last draft. It wasn't something I figured out early on. Number 2, let yourself use filler tags. If you get to a part where you know something has to happen, but you don't know how to write it yet, put in all caps the thing that has to happen. If it's a fight scene, write fight where main character gets his arm dislocated, instead of fretting for weeks about how to actually write the fight scene. If it's a kissing scene, but you don't particularly enjoy writing romantic scenes, just write, as my mom would say, kissy kissy huggy huggy, or something else describing what you know needs to happen in there. And do that in all caps and come back to it later. If it's a setting description and you're having difficulty with that, just put in all caps, describe forest setting here. That's actually a tag I used in the rewrites for book 3. And if you have trouble with dialogue tags or action tags, just skip them and come back later. We have an author who literally does this because she knows those are the parts that are hard for her, and so she leaves them for later. When you let yourself use these filler tags for sections that might keep you stuck if you can't get past them immediately, you're able to make it through your first draft faster. It also helps you build trust with yourself that you can figure those sections out later. And number 3, turn off your spell check and grammar tools. This includes any apps that sit over your word processors like ProWritingAid or Grammarly. For me, ProWritingAid sits over Scrivener, but I have to deactivate it every time I go in to write because it starts auto-checking and putting the annoying little error lines underneath things when it detects grammar and spelling issues. And when I'm in writing mode, I just don't care about those things. I might as well just take it out of Scrivener entirely because I never use ProWritingAid to check while in Scrivener, which is where I do all my writing. But even if you're in Google Docs, Microsoft Word, OpenOffice, or any other writing processor, those automatic grammar and spelling checks can be so distracting when all you're trying to do is get the story out of your head and onto the page. And that process is inherently messy, which means those little prompts to fix grammar and spelling often do more harm than good in those early stages. If you're a perfectionist, this tip is going to sound absolutely crazy, but you might be surprised by how much more you can write without distraction when you're not spotting little red or blue squiggles under your words and your phrases. There are an infinite number of tips that writers could attempt to keep in mind while writing their first drafts, but the truth is that over time, you'll develop your own personalized toolbox of tips that work for you. I challenge you all to try these, and if they work, awesome, add them to your toolbox. But if they don't, move on to other strategies that might work better for your writing process. That's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining me, and remember, the first draft is supposed to be garbage. Thanks for listening to the Novel Writing Podcast. If you're ready to stop struggling and start finishing your novel, check out the 60-Day Novel Writing Challenge. It's a step-by-step program designed for solo writers to complete their first draft with clarity and focus. Visit the link in the description to learn more.